Hello everyone, this is Build to Fail with Moon and Garrett. The idea of this series is to prototype a product every 3 months by constantly building and failing. Hopefully along the way we can share something interesting for you to motivate you also work on your ideas. The very first idea we chose to work on is a mobile app called Nerd Collector. This idea is you can use this app to take a photo at home, and this app will recognize all the objects in this photo and digitalize them so that you can have a personal database of all your belongings. And we don't really see this has like a particular business value because we didn't really research or validate the idea with anyone else. We chose this one just because it's something very concrete. We know what it will look like in the end, and this is the problem space that we both are interested in. We started working on this last week, if you checked out our last episode, and the schedule is to deliver it by the end of January.
Last week was mainly me kind of like introducing myself to Flutter. I've never used Flutter before, so I figured what I would do is at least get an idea of what Flutter is. And once I've done like kind of a tutorial and got more familiar with it, I was like, okay, that should be good enough. Then I can start working on more of the model stuff. I thought originally that I was going to be like, okay, I'm going to go into Python, do some model stuff, and then we can maybe communicate that way. But then I kind of realized that, at least for now, it's just going to be a lot easier to use a already trained model on object detection. I was like, okay, if I'm going to do that, then I actually need to learn Flutter so I can take that model in the Flutter and do the object detection in there. And so I kind of quickly learned that when I thought I only needed a little bit of Flutter knowledge, I now needed to know a lot of Flutter knowledge so I can get, just because there's a lot of stuff in there that's not like Python, which is what I'm more used to right now. Mainly the thing I learned was Flutter and how much I don't know about Flutter.
Yeah, I think you were expecting like importing a library just as easy as importing a library in in Python. So what I did was the easier part. I set up the user registration, email verification, the home screen, layout, and the logout. It involves a lot of async programming. I wasn't familiar with that before, and because my experience is only in data science and machine learning, I wasn't used to think through like how user interact with that app, and my app will need to handle all the possible reactions from a user, and how to separate the logic. For example, authentication provider that should be abstract away from the UI. I think another thing very interesting was how Flutter chose to use Dart. Before I thought Dart was designed for Flutter. Actually, it's not. Dart came out 2013 and Flutter came out 2017. Flutter team went through like dozens of candidates to choose that one.
I think it's because they're both named by Google. That's my solution.
Yeah, that's true as well. The high and the low of the past week.
So the high part is that once I kind of I did a tutorial in Flutter, and after that I was like, okay, I understand Flutter now. I'm feeling pretty good. I got, widgets, whatever. I got it. Nope. Yeah, that was the low part as well, amazingly. It was like, I thought I knew what was going on, and then once I started trying to take the TensorFlow Lite package and bring it in, I was basically just like constantly being hit by roadblocks where it felt like I was just doing nothing basically. And so, I spent like 2 days trying to figure out all the importing errors and getting through it, and I still didn't get through it.
And mentally accepting it's not working.
Yeah, that was the other thing, is I was at the point where even if it was to work how I wanted it to, I wouldn't have gotten any joy from it because I was just bummed out. And so I think the lesson from this high and low is that, first off, I should have expected it not to be easy, just because I've done other programming. As I was going through, I was realizing more and more how much Flutter I didn't know and how much I really needed to know. And I think that was kind of a thing of, I wanted to really get a deliverable out, but I didn't want to take the time to try and understand everything. I was just trying to get something there. And so I think that was the lesson of, this deliverable is kind of arbitrary because it's just kind of on our time, but it was something that I self-imposed, and I think that hindered me more than helped me. And so even though I learned some, I would have learned a lot better if I'm doing what I'm doing now and actually getting a good understanding of what kind of everything is, instead of just struggling the whole time. Okay, so that was it for me. What are your highs and lows?
I want to follow up your last point. I think it's very important, when you just started off picking up a new framework, or new tooling that you don't really have a mental map what different components there are and how they interact with each other, and you just jump on trying to use them. It's like they are a monster. You have the tamed. Is that the word tamed? You haven't tamed them and you are trying to like make them work for you. No, tooling doesn't work that way. Just like you have to lose control a little bit over your time because you have no idea how much the hole you're gonna dig into to really understand it, and that like lost of control over time is scary, but you have to go through anyway if you want to make it work.
My expectation of this, by the way, because like in Python I can import like TensorFlow and I could be like, take this model, load it in, fit the data, bam, done. And so that's what I was expecting, and that is a bad expectation on me.
Yeah, like it's just like when you just start it off, you can only see the surface, but there is huge iceberg down there and you couldn't see it. But okay, high and low. Before, when I very first time touched Flutter, like I would just say one widget, another widget. I don't know how they work together. And this time I feel like I have a grasp on higher level how things work together. But it's not higher level. Like, so basically I'm able to take a step back and think the whole project rather than just focus on each line. But also like lower level, like how they talk to each other, like you define the data type, like how you write a abstract class, a getter or a singleton pattern in the language of Dart. High and low. I think my high moment wasn't from Flutter, was the fact that I was able to spend more time in writing. Also, I took several hours playing piano. Low was overwhelmed every single day, constantly lagged behind my schedule, and just try not think about it. That's my current strategy.
I was gonna mention on the high point she was talking about. The reason why that's the high point is because he usually doesn't do that stuff, and so it's actually like hard for her to have a relaxing, what we would define as relaxing moment.
Expectation for next week.
I just want to have like a good idea how Flutter kind of works and not have to like, I was even having troubles of like figuring out how functions work and initializing things. And so I just want to have like a good understanding. And then number 2 would be getting an image with a bounding box of the object recognition. So that'd probably be like the 2 things I'd like to get done.
That's ambitious, but so I first want to have spend the time drawing a diagram of all the components inside the Flutter, and the backend is very light. It's pretty much just a Firebase for both authentication and the database itself. But I want to have a very clear documentation so that 2 months later I know what exactly I did, and 6 months later if we are working on some other thing that I can change this app to that new product easily. The second thing I need to do is to design a schema for the database so that for user profile, user post, photo, user take, and the audio, because you're going to talk to the app to make a tag for the objects. Currently, the camera is already working, but I'm not very familiar with that widget. It can take a photo, but you can't retrieve it. And same for the audio. So I need to make that work. And the last part is relatively trivial. It's just to user not only can register and log in, they can also set up their user profile and location. I think that's all. And wrap this up.
So get out of here. We have nothing else.
Well, I think last week was relatively easy because we had 2 days off. So we had more time working on it. So this week probably will have some slowdown. But I think we're still on the track to deliver it January. Probably too early to tell, but we'll try. Okay, thank you everyone. Bye-bye.